Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm Gamesplaining CO2 Second Chance. So this Gamesplanation is going to be broken up into two parts. I will deal first with just your own player board. This is the part you can watch if you are merely playing the game, but you will need someone at the table who knows the entire game to watch the other parts. The idea of this game is to save CO2 on the planet. That is marked by this marker. If it goes above this point, so 500 plus, and you cannot get it back down, you have lost the game. I'm doing the cooperative version of the game. There is a non-cooperative version which I've never played, and I don't think that I really wish to. So if you are looking at this video for a non-cooperative version, please forgive me and move on. I'm sure someone else has done a Gamesplanation for the non-cooperative version. On your turn, you will, as a two-player game, which this game is set up for, you will have 4 turns and then each of the end game stuff, and then we move on to the next decade. There are 4 decades. At the end of the 4th decade, if you are still alive, you have a chance of winning the game. If you are playing a 4-player game, you'll each only have 2 turns in the decade. If you're playing a 3-player game, you'll each have 3 turns until you get to the last decade, at which point this marker comes out and goes out there, showing that you only have 2 turns to choose from. But this is set up for a 2-player game, so we will run with the 4 turns. On your turn, you will get to do one of the main actions and each of the executive actions if you wish. So running through them, first up we have the main actions. We propose something. So in order to propose a new project, which is the first action, you will choose one of these tiles. Each of them is representative of a different type of clean power plant. You will then select where you wish to build it. So you have each of the different continents that you can choose from. And once you select one, you will then be selecting one of these 3 benefits that you'll gain. So if you were to put this one in here, you would gain money equal to the number of CEP, these are CEP markers, that the country has. So if he was to put that one in there, he would get 4 money onto his board. This marker means that he would also get one of his markers onto that type of power, which would be just there. Now the problem is this type of power plant cannot go in South America because South America can only take one of those 3. This one's a wind one, which means he would need to put it in here in order to be able to actually build that one. That would also gain him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 money for doing so. You mark it. The other things that are able to be granted are you can gain an extra scientist, which is over here, and that goes into that area of your board. We'll talk about why we need them in a moment. All 3 of these gain the extra element up the top, or you can gain 2 knowledge. So that's these cubes just here, and they go onto your board. As you only get 1 action on there, that's all you can do for the main actions. You would then get to do executive actions. Then on the next turn round, so that's moved along to the 2nd turn, you could do this action, the infrastructure action. So what that looks like is you will pay one of these to the bank. Notice, pay the CEP. Then you would gain for this tile 5 money and 1 knowledge marker. So 5 money and 1 knowledge marker coming in. You then mark that has been taken, and you suddenly have some infrastructure. The 3rd action, so on the 3rd turn, you can build that power plant. To build the power plant, the cost is on your own personal board. So this is a level 1 power plant. This guy will need 9 money, so 9 money he can spend. He'll also need 1 CEP, and he'll also need 2 knowledge markers. Once he's done that, that then allows him to build that power plant, and he'll put that into the leftmost space, showing that that's been built during the 2010 decade. What he gains for doing that is 7 victory points. If there happens to be no empty spaces, you'll remove a fossil fuel. I'll talk about them in the next video, so don't worry too much about them. That's a extreme kind of win case according to the way that games that I've played have gone. Because this player has built a wind power plant, he puts one of his markers or control cubes into the spot with wind. Each time you build a power plant, you'll put a marker there. Because he has the most markers there, he controls North America, so he'll put his big marker in that space as well. To know if you've got control, you have the most markers here, or if two of you have the same number of markers, whoever has the most markers on the number 1 spot, or if there's none there, the number 2 spot, etc. There are a couple of other tie breaks, but that's the basics of that one. The other 3 elements of the game are the executive actions. Now, all 3 of these actions can happen on every turn, so you can only do 1 of the main actions, 3 executive actions. What are those executive actions? The top one is playing cards. So you have 5 cards in your hand. There's a little marker at the top that tells you when that can be used. So let's, for example, say he wished to use a card on the build phase. This would be played either just before or just after that action has happened. He'll play that. This card shows that he has built a wind power plant, which he has just done. He will gain 3 money for that. And there's 3 money coming in. The other thing you could do on that part of the game is you can claim UN cards. That's these cards at the top. It will cost you these white knowledge markers, depending which set you take. So if you're taking from these 5, you would be spending 2 of them. If you take from these 5, you'd be spending 1 of them. In order to claim one of these, you must have completed the correct different power plants. So if on this player's next go through, he controls one of these ones as well, he could claim this card. This is one of the other things you need to watch out for at the end of the game. There can only be a maximum of 3 unclaimed cards. So this really tells you which types of power plants you're trying to put in. The next one down is the market. When you do the market, you either buy 1 of the CEP from the center. At the moment, it will cost 3 because that's where the red marker is over. So it would cost him 3 money to buy 1 CEP. If that's what the market looked like at the moment and it was his turn, so he goes there, he could spend his 3 money to buy that last CEP. Now there is no more CEP there. So the price increases and then 2 markers will go back in. That only happens at the end of this player's turn. So it's already kind of done, but it's just something that happens as you exchange who is playing. The other thing he could do is sell CEP. So he sells 1, it goes back to the bank, it doesn't go into the middle, it does go back to the bank. He would gain 4 money for that, and then that marker would go down 1. So there's the 4 money coming in. The other thing that he could do is, the last one is move a scientist. So moving a scientist is, let's just set one of these up for example. Now, when he moves a scientist, he takes a scientist off his own board and moves it up into one of the spots to show that he's doing some research. The other spot that you could move a scientist to would be to this card, or any of the cards. So any card that any player has played, you could move a scientist there and you'll gain what is in that bottom right hand corner. That's called the minor effect. Now if he has done that, he would stay there the rest of the game. You don't get him back, you can't gain him for anything, but no one else is able to go on that card and get that thing. So he would get 1 knowledge for doing that. So you'll find you probably won't do that too often, but this is where the scientist goes if he's going to go up to a project. On your next turn around, when you get to the move a scientist spot, because you have a scientist in a project, you have the option of moving him out of that project back to your hand. You will gain knowledge whenever you move a scientist out. So basically putting the project up here gains you 1 knowledge. Putting a scientist in there doesn't do anything, but on the next turn, if you move it out of there, that will gain you another knowledge. You could move him from one project, say there was another project just there, to another project. He would gain the knowledge for doing that move as well. Or you could move him out of that project into one of the projects shown up on the top portion of the board, or this portion of the board. This is where he's going off to talk about that element, that type of energy. So because he's moved out of a green one, he would go and stand on the green spot. You know, you could choose any of the spots. I've just chosen that one because it's close. And he will stay there until someone fills up the other one. You could also move from there to the lobbyist card if you wished. Now that's the basics of it, but bear in mind, you cannot build this third section, so build the power plant, unless you actually have the knowledge up here to do so. Because we've only had one knowledge, he couldn't have actually built that power plant. In order to build that, he would have needed to have a scientist go into the spot, as we were just talking about, and then move across to be able to move that up to be able to build level 1. Notice that we start with level 1 buildings, so that's marked just here. After two of them, we go to level 2 buildings. So you need to be past that point, kind of moved up. So level 1, level 2, level 1, level 2, it's marked on each of the different tracks. I think that is sufficient for the moment. You can at least get the game started. If you have someone who knows the game, who has watched the other video, you should be okay to get going with it this way. If you wish to learn more about the game, please go ahead and watch the next video. Or you could go forward to the Gamesplained to watch the beginning of a game to get an idea of how it actually works in actual rotation, actual movement. So I'll leave it there. If you have any games that you would like to be Gamesplained, please shoot me an email at thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.